In this lecture, we will explore the second half of the 2018 article by Cassels, Rassel, and Nation called Ending the Reading Wars. We'll explore the factors that influence the development of reading comprehension. The simple view of reading is one framework for representing how skilled reading is acquired. Back in the late 80s, Goff and Tumner confirmed that decoding and language comprehension account for almost all of the variance around reading comprehension. In young children, reading comprehension is almost all about decoding. In other words, comprehension is constrained by decoding. As children get older, grades 3 and up, language comprehension skills take on a larger role in whether or not children understand what they read. In other words, reading comprehension will be constrained by language comprehension. A limitation of the model and the research that has been done since it was first released is that there is disagreement on what constitutes language comprehension in the model. There is no single unified model of reading comprehension. As the authors state, reading comprehension is not a single entity. It is the result of interaction among complex cognitive processes that change based on factors related to the reader, the text, and the goal of reading. Perfetti and Stafura's 2014 Reading Systems Framework includes 3 constructs that underpin reading comprehension. The first is knowledge, which includes linguistic knowledge, orthographic knowledge, and general knowledge. The second describes processes involved in reading, which includes decoding, word identification, meaning retrieval, sentence parsing, inferring, and comprehension monitoring, along with the interaction of these processes with each other and with background knowledge. The third factor involves general cognitive resources such as memory. I'll briefly introduce key aspects of each construct that contribute to reading comprehension. In the area of knowledge, the authors discuss orthographic, linguistic, and content knowledge as important components of reading comprehension. Orthographic knowledge refers to the fact that reading comprehension can't happen without adequate word reading. We spent time in previous lectures exploring how phonology and orthography are related and how they can be taught to levels that support reading comprehension. Oral vocabulary sets the foundation for reading comprehension. If you can decode but don't know the meaning of words, you won't comprehend. These are linguistic skills. For young students, this primarily involves oral vocabulary. Older students learn more words through reading than we could ever teach them directly. This component includes knowledge of idioms, figures of speech, and multiple meanings of words. The linguistic component also includes knowledge and skills related to syntax and grammar. Broad content knowledge also contributes to reading comprehension. The knowledge that students have stored in long-term memory facilitates understanding text and making inferences, as well as drawing the connections necessary for understanding text at deep levels. Reading comprehension is influenced by cognitive processes such as meaning activation, inference generation, and comprehension monitoring. Students differ in their word recognition skills and vocabulary, but we can also ask if there are differences in the processes of activating meaning. Students might know the meaning of a word, but not know it in the context of a particular sentence, or they might be slower to activate the meaning of the word in a particular context. Or it is also possible that students might have trouble deciding which information is relevant. All of these factors contribute to differences in reading comprehension. The ability to make inferences is central to reading comprehension. Inference making starts in oral language. Inferencing is predictive of overall reading comprehension. Poor comprehenders have trouble making inferences. It is hard to know what causes the differences in inferencing. This is an area that needs further research. Comprehension monitoring also contributes to reading comprehension. Just as we discussed the metacognitive skills involved in phonological awareness, we can think about the cognitive processes students need to engage in while they are reading so they can monitor their understanding. These are skills that can be explicitly taught. The third area of reading systems framework is general cognitive resources. These include the planning, organizing, and executing processes and tasks involved in reading comprehension. We call those executive function skills. Students differ in their ability to regulate resources to achieve a goal, which impacts comprehension. Working memory can be defined as the mechanisms or processes involved in the control, regulation, and active maintenance of task-relevant information involved in complex cognition. Students with good working memory can retain more information, which could allow them to make connections and draw on background knowledge. Working memory is also related to inferencing and vocabulary knowledge. It is not clear if working memory constrains comprehension or if differences in memory are a natural consequence of how well students understand the material in the first place. Although this framework is helpful for delineating the cognitive constructs involved in reading comprehension, you can see how complex and interrelated they are. This makes assessment and instruction of these skills very, very difficult. As I've stated, reading comprehension is complex and multifaceted. It is a difficult skill to assess. Some comprehension tests ask questions at the end of a passage, but it has been found that students can often answer those questions without reading the passage due to their high levels of background knowledge. Other tests of reading comprehension require such high word level reading skills that it is impossible to separate decoding from comprehension. Students don't perform the same way on different tests of comprehension because different tests measure fundamentally different things. The National Reading Panel found several conclusions that can be helpful for informing our work. Some key strategies emerge from the principles of reciprocal teaching, in which children are encouraged to discuss a text with peers and teachers, using methods such as clarification, summarization, prediction, and question generation. These strategies tended to generate larger effect sizes. Strategies can be taught efficiently, explicitly, and quickly starting in 3rd grade after students can decode. 2 large meta-analyses found teaching vocabulary helps students do better on reading passages that contain the exact words taught, but this doesn't transfer to general comprehension measures. Brief, 1-minute teaching of words that is interactive and discussion-based works best. The research findings also support teaching students to be flexible with word meanings, teaching Latin roots, and teaching what Isabel Beck calls Tier 2 words, those words that are often used in multiple contexts and will help students understand a particular text. Directly teaching inferencing improves reading comprehension. Students can be taught to activate background knowledge, and this skill transfers to new situations and new texts. The main finding from research on working memory is that improving working memory does not improve reading comprehension. The skills are related, but we don't yet know the exact nature of the relationship. The key messages of the Castles, Rassel, and Nation article highlight the complex and multifaceted nature of reading comprehension and the associated difficulty of separating knowledge, processing, and general resources such as memory. High-quality knowledge promotes efficient processing and therefore fewer demands on cognitive resources. Further complexity is added when we try to explain why children might have difficulty with reading comprehension across the grades. What might start as a processing difference might escalate to differences in knowledge, and vice versa. Factors beyond the scope of their article, such as motivation, attitudes about reading, or knowledge about reading for different purposes, also contribute in complex and important ways. An important summary point is that we should teach students to decode effortlessly so that they can take advantage of reading more and reading more complex texts. This is what will allow their decoding and comprehension skills to reciprocally increase over time.